Most airlines are built slowly, one route at a time, one aircraft at a time. Emirates did the opposite. It tried to change global travel almost immediately, with borrowed planes, almost no history, and a gamble so aggressive that many people in aviation thought it would collapse before the decade. And it did, because in the mid-1980s, Dubai was not the center of the world. It wasn't even close. The city was growing fast, but in aviation terms, it was still dependent on other countries and other airlines to stay connected. And when Gulf Air, the dominant airline in the region, began pulling flights away from Dubai, something uncomfortable became clear. If Dubai couldn't control its own connections, it would always depend on someone else's priorities, so the ruling family made a decision that sounded almost irrational at the time. They would build a brand new airline from scratch. Not because the market was demanding it, not because they had decades of aviation experience, but because they believed air travel could become the foundation of Dubai's future. The problem was, they barely had the tools to do it. Emirates launched in 1985 with just a handful of aircraft. Some were leased, some were borrowed. Early pilots and crew even came from Pakistan International Airlines because Emirates didn't yet have enough trained staff of its own. The startup capital was only around $10 million, tiny compared to what major airlines usually required. And yet from the beginning, the airline behaved like it was planning for something much larger. Its first routes were regional Karachi, Mumbai, Delhi, Cairo, practical destinations, safe choices. But internally, executives were already thinking beyond the Middle East. They believed Dubai could become a bridge between East and West, a place where passengers from completely different parts of the world would stop, connect, and continue flying. That idea sounded ambitious at best, because airlines weren't designed that way. Yet, most travelers still flew through Europe or relied on national carriers tied to specific countries. The system was fragmented, conservative, slow to change, but Emirates saw an opening hidden inside geography itself. Dubai sat almost perfectly between Europe, Asia, and Africa. And if the airline could move fast enough, it might be able to connect all three. That was the theory. The risk was whether anyone would actually choose to fly that way, and this is where the story starts to get uncomfortable for the rest of the airline industry, because Emirates didn't just expand. It expanded before it made sense. In the early 1990s, the airline started ordering long-range aircraft at a scale that surprised competitors. The Boeing 777 became central to the strategy. Bigger aircraft, longer routes, more passengers flowing through Dubai to critics. It looked reckless. Why would a young airline commit itself to massive aircraft orders before proving long-term demand existed? But Emirates wasn't thinking like a normal airline anymore. It wasn't trying to dominate one country. It was trying to position Dubai at the center of global movement itself. And slowly, passengers began noticing something different. The cabins felt newer. The service felt elevated. Entertainment screens appeared at seats long before many competitors offered them consistently. Flying Emirates started feeling less like transportation, and more like entering a different version of air travel. That distinction mattered more than people realized at the time, because while older airlines relied on reputation built decades earlier, Emirates was building something else entirely. Expectation. Passengers started comparing flights differently after experiencing Emirates. Suddenly, food, comfort, entertainment, and service became part of the decision-making process in ways legacy carriers weren't prepared for, and as customer expectations changed, Emirates kept escalating. Flights expanded deeper into Europe, into Asia, into Australia, then eventually toward North America. Every new route strengthened the same idea. No matter where you lived, Dubai could become your connection point. But the airline still had one. Problem: it needed an aircraft big enough to fully unlock the strategy, and that aircraft would become one of the most controversial bets in aviation history. When Airbus introduced the A380, many airlines were interested, very few truly committed to it. The aircraft was enormous, expensive, difficult to fill consistently. Aviation analysts questioned whether the future of travel even needed planes that large anymore. The industry was already starting to shift toward smaller, fuel-efficient jets, capable of flying directly between cities without forcing passengers through giant hubs. But Emirates saw the A380 differently. To them, it wasn't just an airplane, it was the physical embodiment of the entire Emirates model, a moving skyscraper designed to funnel huge numbers of passengers through Dubai every single day. So while other airlines hesitated, Emirates doubled down hard over time. It ordered more A380s than anyone else in the world. Eventually, nearly half of all A380s ever built would belong to Emirates alone. The airline redesigned its identity around the aircraft: onboard lounges, showers in first class, massive premium cabins, and an experience designed to feel almost unreal compared to traditional flying. And for years, the gamble looked genius. Passengers went out of their way to book Emirates flights specifically to experience the A380 airports adapted around the aircraft. Dubai International Airport exploded into one of the busiest international hubs on Earth. The system was working exactly as Emirates imagined. People from Europe connected through Dubai to Asia. Passengers from Asia connected through Dubai to America, Africa, Australia, the Middle East, everywhere, flowed through one city at one point. It genuinely felt like Emirates had discovered the future before everyone else. But this only matters once you see what happened next, because while Emirates was perfecting the hub-and-spoke model, the rest of aviation quietly started evolving away from it. New aircraft technology changed everything. Smaller twin-engine jets suddenly had the range to fly routes that once required giant connections. Airlines no longer needed to route passengers through mega-hubs as often. Direct flights became cheaper, easier, and more attractive to travelers who simply wanted to avoid long layovers. And slowly, the advantage Emirates built its empire around started becoming less. Certain fuel prices climbed. Operational costs increased, and the economics behind giant four-engine aircraft like the A380 became harder to justify. Even Airbus began feeling the pressure. Outside of enthusiasm for the Super Jumbo faded fast. Airlines reduced orders, some retired the aircraft earlier than expected. Others stopped expanding A380 fleets altogether, but Emirates couldn't pivot. Izeli, the airline, had built an enormous part of its identity around this aircraft. Its schedules depended on it. Its hub depended on it. Its luxury image depended on it. Then came the moment that shook the entire industry. Emirates canceled part of its remaining A380 order, and almost immediately after, Airbus announced the end of the A380 program entirely. That single decision revealed something bigger than most headlines focused on. Even the airline that believed in the A380 more than anyone was beginning to acknowledge the world was changing. The real crisis still hadn't arrived, because just as Emirates started adjusting its future fleet strategy, ordering smaller long-range aircraft like the A350 and Boeing 787, global aviation entered a collapse. Nobody could fully prepare for. 2020 didn't just reduce travel, it attacked the exact type of network Emirates depended on. Most international long-haul connections disappeared almost overnight. Huge airports emptied. Massive aircraft suddenly became liabilities instead of advantages. And for the first time in decades, serious questions emerged about whether the Emirates model itself could survive the future.